This is Spotlights, a podcast for the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology. I'm your host, Sam Mickey. I'm a research associate at the Forum. I'm also an adjunct professor in the Theology and Religious Studies Department at the University of San Francisco in San Francisco, California, where most of my teaching focuses on environmental issues in ethics and religion. So last week was our inaugural episode featuring Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm, the co-directors of the Forum. They welcomed us into the fall season and introduced some of the new things that are happening at the Forum, including the launching of this podcast. So, what will we be doing with this podcast? Each week, we will spotlight or feature somebody working in or around the field of religion and ecology. And that's meant in a very kind of big tent approach, a broad sense of religion and ecology. So if you've heard other related terms like religion and nature, religious environmentalism, some people talk about spiritual ecology, some people talk about eco-spirituality. So all of that and more will be included in what we're doing. And for each person we talk to, we'll hear about a variety of things that they might be up to, including things like new publications, practices, engaged projects, maybe strategies for teaching and curriculum development. And we'll also be looking at the broader field of environmental humanities, which includes a lot of different things happening under the umbrella of literary, philosophical, religious, and historical perspectives on environmental issues. So, for this episode, we're featuring Hava Tirosh Samuelson, a really important theorist in relationship to Judaism and environmental ethics, or Judaism and ecology. She's the editor of the book Judaism and Ecology that was published in the series from the Center for the Study of World Religions at Harvard, the World Religions and Ecology series. So along with that, she's an intellectual historian in a broad sense and has done a lot of work with religion, philosophy, history, looking at like early modern mysticism and looking at feminism and gender theory, looking at religion in light of post-secularism, and then among all these other things, also looking at religion and science or religion and ecology, specifically in relationship to a Jewish lens. So really happy to have her on the pod today. And I think you've probably heard enough out of me at this point, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to her and let her introduce herself to you. Thanks.
I'm Hava Tirosh Samuelson, and I'm Regents Professor of History, Irving and Miriam Lowe Professor of Modern Judaism, and Director of the Center for Jewish Studies at Arizona State University. I was born and raised in Israel, and I hold a PhD from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. I've lived in the United States since 1977, and I've taught at Columbia University, Emory University, Indiana University, and since 1999 at Arizona State University. At the Hebrew University, I was trained as an intellectual historian who focuses on philosophy and mysticism in the Middle Ages and the early modern period. But for the past 2 decades, I have included as well 2 other fields, religion and science, and religion and ecology. And as an intellectual historian, I also engage feminism and gender theory as they relate to Jewish philosophy and to environmental ethics. I've published 3 monographs, 31 edited volumes, and over 50 essays. Let me tell you a little bit about my written work. So my first monograph is Between Worlds, the Life and Thought of Rabbi David ben Judah Messer Leon. It was published in 1991, and it received the award of the Hebrew University for the best work in Jewish history, published in 1991. This is an intellectual biography of one person, an Italian-born Jewish philosopher by the name of David Messer Leon, and he lived between 1470 and 1535. And he was a philosopher as well as a mystic. He was a scholastic as well as a humanist, a jurist as well as a communal leader. By writing the intellectual biography and analyzing his work, I was able to explain the transformation of Jewish thought at the end of the Middle Ages. I also wrote and explained the Jewish responses to and contribution to the Italian Renaissance, and the internal divisions and tensions within the Jewish community among the Sephardic Jews, the Ashkenazic Jews, the Italiani, and the Romagnols. My second book, Happiness in Pre-Modern Judaism, Virtue, Knowledge, and Well-Being, was published about a decade later in 2003. And it shifts the focus from an individual to a theme. I basically traced the discourse on happiness from antiquity to the 17th century, and I explained how the identification of wisdom and Torah has enabled Jews to be open to Greek philosophy, both the Platonic and the Aristotelian tradition. So the book focuses primarily on the reception of the Aristotelian conception of happiness, and I showed how Jews and Christians and Muslims in the Middle Ages, as well as in the early modern period, really make sense of Aristotle in the context of the Abrahamic traditions. The book shows how Jewish thinkers engaged intellectual and religious traditions while arguing for Jewish spiritual superiority, even though politically and socially Jews and Judaism were persecuted. My third and most recent book is Religion and Environment, the Case of Judaism. It just came out, and it is based on 2 decades of involvement in the field of religion and ecology. I entered the field in 1997 in the conference at Harvard on Judaism in the Natural World, which was part of the series of conferences organized by Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm. Now, I was not one of the organizers of the conference, but I was asked to edit the papers of the conference, and that came out as Judaism and Ecology, Created World and Revealed Word, and it was published in 2002 as part of the series of the Religions of the World and Ecology, published at Harvard University Press. So since 1997, since that conference and since editing the volume, I really became very involved in the discourse on religion and ecology, and I wrote the various essays on Judaism in reference books of the field. Building on all of this work, the most recent book links the field of religion and ecology to the field of religion and science. Even though in both fields, I have to say, Jews and Judaism hold a marginal position. So the book explicates the Jewish conceptions of nature from antiquity to the present, and it highlights textual sources for Jewish religious environmentalism. At present, I am engaged in writing another monograph. The title is Jewish Environmental Spirituality in the Post-Secular Age. It's going to be published by Routledge. And I try to present Jewish religious environmentalism in the larger cultural context of post-secularism. Now, this term was coined during the 1980s to signify the resurgence of religion. Presumably, religion was supposed to disappear, but that didn't happen. So we have a post-secular world, and I try to explain how environmentalism, especially Jewish environmentalism, fits into it. So the book explores major Jewish environmental thinkers, organizations, and activities, and it argues that Judaism actually challenges how we interpret secularism, secularity, and secularization. All of those terms was defined and evolved within a Christian context. In addition to this conceptual analysis, I also launched an ethnographic study. The focus is religious environmentalism among American Jews, and this will involve field work in which I interview thought leaders, influencers, activists, and educators. And that research will explain the connection between environmentalism and Jewish identity, especially in America. All this is part of a larger project that I and 2 other people at ASU are engaged in. The title of that project is Beyond Secularization, Religion, Science, and Technology in Public Life. And it is funded by the Templeton Religion Trust. The field of religion and ecology, as you can hear, has been part of my academic identity for at least 2 decades. I've approached religion and ecology as a Jewish intellectual historian who is familiar with the richness and diversity of Judaism and who is most attentive to the development of Judaism over time through interaction with surrounding civilizations, intellectual schools, and religious traditions. Now, although my scholarship is descriptive and analytical, it does raise some normative questions. And I'm very concerned, especially about our current eco-crisis and what we need to do about it. So, given the dire prospects of the Anthropocene, about which all of us are aware, I believe that world religions have an important role to play in motivating humanity to live more sustainably, protecting the world that God created from anthropogenic destruction. We have a very short window of opportunity in which we can act, and we need to act urgently if we are going to inherit a livable world to future generations. Defining human life in terms of a task, Judaism succinctly asks, if not now, when? Judaism teaches us also that it is not for us to complete the task, but neither are we free to desist from it. So the discourse on religion and ecology summons all of us to be informed about the eco-crisis and to respond to it from our distinctive faith traditions. I'm very grateful to Mary Evelyn Tucker and to John Grimm for their vision and their leadership, and for inviting me to be on the advisory board of the Yale Forum of Religion and Ecology. Thank you.
Thank you, Hava Tirosh Samuelson. Such a pleasure to have you here, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more, and in the meantime, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. All right, bye for now.